You thought you could get away with this? Sign the papers and get out!
How could you do this to me?
Please, stop it. Both of you.
Thomas had always been the steady rock in their marriage, a quiet software engineer from a small, Midwest town who met Ella during college in Chicago. She was the vibrant one. A marketing executive with dreams of luxury and high society, they'd built a modest life in suburban Illinois. A cozy 3-bedroom house, weekend barbecues with neighbors, and vacations to national parks. But lately, Ella's late nights at the office had stretched into unexplained absences. Thomas noticed the changes, her phone buzzing with messages she hid, the distant look in her eyes during dinner. One evening, as snow dusted the Chicago skyline visible from their window, Ella sat him down. "Thomas, we need to talk," she said, her voice laced with rehearsed sympathy. He'd suspected something for months, but hearing it crushed him. "I've reconnected with John, my ex from high school. He's successful now, owns a tech startup in Silicon Valley. You're just too ordinary. We deserve more than this middle-class rut." Thomas felt his world shatter. John, the charming quarterback who'd broken her heart years ago, was back, whispering promises of wealth and excitement. Ella confessed to emotional cheating late-night calls, secret lunches insisting it wasn't physical yet. But her heart had shifted. Thomas pleaded, "We've built this together. Isn't that enough?" But Ella's mind was set. She filed for divorce the next week, demanding half of everything, including their savings. Thomas, devastated, moved to a dingy apartment. Wondering how his simple life had unraveled so fast, Ella moved fast. Within weeks of the divorce papers being signed, she packed up and flew to California to be with John. Thomas heard through mutual friends that she'd already posted pictures on social media, her in a sleek black dress at a rooftop party in San Francisco, John's arm around her waist, both smiling like they'd won the lottery. John's startup had just landed a big round of funding, and suddenly Ella was living the dream she'd always talked about: designer bags, Michelin star dinners, weekends in Napa Valley wineries. Back in Illinois, Thomas picked up the pieces. He worked overtime, hit the gym to clear his head, and started therapy. The betrayal stung deepest at night. When he'd replay her words, "You're just too ordinary." He sold the house, split the money fairly even though his lawyer said he could fight for more, and bought a small condo downtown. Friends told him to date again, but he wasn't ready. Instead, he focused on his job, earning a promotion that came with a solid raise. Life became quiet, almost peaceful. One day, an unmarked envelope arrived at his new address. No return label, just his name typed neatly on the front. Inside was a single sheet of heavy cream paper with an embossed crest he didn't recognize, a lion and a crown. The letter was short. "Mr. Thomas Harlan, we regret to inform you of the passing of your wife's great-aunt, Her Royal Highness Princess Margaret of Eldovia. As the sole remaining direct heir, your former wife, Ella Marie Harlan, has ascended to the throne." Thomas stared at the words, thinking it was a prank. Eldovia, he'd never heard Ella mention any royal family. Thomas laughed at first, tossing the letter aside as some elaborate scam. But curiosity nagged him. He Googled Eldovia and found it a tiny European principality nestled in the Alps, known for its ski resorts and discreet royalty. Princess Margaret had indeed passed away recently, childless with no public heir announced. The news articles mentioned a distant relative from America might be in line for the throne. He dug deeper, pulling out old photo albums from storage. There, in faded pictures, was Ella as a child with an elegant woman, her great-aunt, visiting from Europe. Ella had always dismissed her family's old stories as exaggerations, claiming they were just wealthy immigrants. Thomas remembered her vague mentions of a trust fund she never touched. Saying it was too complicated, shocked, he contacted the law firm listed in the letter. A crisp, British-accented voice confirmed it. Ella was the legitimate heir, but the coronation required proof of lineage and a stable life. The envelope included documents showing Ella had hidden this from everyone, including Thomas, to live normally now. With the divorce, things got complicated. The royal council needed Thomas's testimony about their marriage to validate her claim. Without it, she could lose everything. Thomas flew to Eldovia on the royal council's dime. Landing in a snow-capped airport where a black limo waited, the tiny country felt like a fairy tale. Zazzles perched on mountains, streets lined with quaint shops selling fondue and cuckoo clocks. At the palace, he met the council, stern men in suits who explained the predicament. Ella's claim hinged on her stable American marriage, as proof of her grounded character, per the late princess's will. With the divorce, that was gone unless Thomas signed an affidavit swearing their union was genuine and that he'd support her reign from afar. Ella arrived the next day, glamorous in a fur coat, John trailing like a lost puppy. She pulled Thomas aside in a gilded hallway. "You have to help me," she whispered urgently. "This throne, it's millions, power, everything. John and I can live like kings." Thomas saw the desperation in her eyes. The same look she'd had when confessing her affair, he agreed to sign, but only if she gave him full custody of their shared assets back home. No alimony, no fights. Ella hesitated, then nodded. As he signed, Thomas felt a spark of revenge igniting. Little did she know, the council had shared more secrets with him. The coronation was set for a crisp spring morning in Eldovia's Grand Cathedral. Broadcast, live across Europe. Ella looked every inch the queen in a white gown embroidered with gold, a diamond tiara sparkling under the chandeliers. John stood proudly in the front row wearing a tailored tuxedo, already planning his role as royal consort. Cameras flashed as Ella took her vows, promising to uphold tradition and duty. Thomas watched from a private balcony, invited as the supportive former husband. The council had kept him close, feeding him details Ella never shared. The biggest bombshell: the late princesses will contain a morality clause. Any heir found to have abandoned a faithful spouse for personal gain or brought scandal through infidelity would be disqualified. Ella's rushed divorce and public flaunting of John had raised red flags. The council needed proof of her emotional affair to enforce it. During the reception, Ella pulled Thomas into a quiet alcove, champagne glass trembling in her hand. "Thank you for coming. Once this settles, I'll make sure you're taking care of maybe a quiet settlement." Thomas smiled politely. In his pocket was a USB drive containing months of saved texts and emails. Ella had sent John while still married, proof the council quietly requested. He hadn't decided yet whether to hand it over. The reception ballroom glittered. With crystal chandeliers and foreign dignitaries toasting the new queen, Ella floated through the crowd, radiant and untouchable. While John schmoozed investors, already bragging about royal connections for his next funding round, Thomas stood near the council members, drink untouched in his hand. Midway through the evening, the palace lights dimmed unexpectedly. A large screen descended behind the throne. Gasps rippled through the room as private messages began scrolling. Ella's late-night texts to John. "I can't wait to leave that boring life behind. Thomas will never know how much I need this once the divorce is final. We'll have everything." Screenshots of her mocking Thomas's modest income, calling him safe but small. The evidence was undeniable. Pulled from John's own hacked cloud account, courtesy of an anonymous tip the council received days earlier. Ella's face drained of color as she realized what was happening. John tried to slip toward an exit, but guards blocked him. The chief counselor took the microphone. "Under the late princess's will, the crown demands moral integrity, infidelity, and abandonment of a faithful spouse. Disqualify the heir." The room fell silent. Ella lunged toward Thomas, pleading, "You did this." He met her eyes calmly. "No, you did." Security escorted her out as the coronation was officially voided. Months later, Thomas sat in a quiet cafe overlooking Lake Michigan, sipping coffee and reading the news on his phone. Headlines screamed, "Disgraced American heiress. Ella Harlan deported from After failed coronation scandal, Ella and John had fled to Los Angeles, but the fallout was brutal. John's investors pulled funding. Once the affair and leaked messages went viral, his startup collapsed overnight. Ella, stripped of any royal claim, was left with nothing but lawsuits from the palace for attempted fraud. Thomas never handed over the USB himself. Turns out, the anonymous tip to the council came from John's own disgruntled ex-business partner, who'd been nursing a grudge and saw the perfect revenge when Ella bragged about her impending queenship at a Silicon Valley party. Thomas had simply stayed silent, letting fate run its course. The real twist came in a final letter from Eldovia's council. Delivered personally this time, Princess Margaret's will had a secondary clause no one expected. In the event, the primary heir was disqualified for moral failure. The crown and its vast private fortune passed to the disqualified heirs, faithful former spouse, as restitution. Thomas was now the surprise prince consort of Eldovia, invited to assume a ceremonial role with full access to the wealth Ella had chased. He smiled, closed the letter, and booked a one-way ticket. Some things, he thought, are better than revenge. Their justice, true loyalty, and quiet integrity are often rewarded in ways that greed and betrayal can never imagine. If you like this story, kindly subscribe to our channel for reach 1K. Subscriber, you're one subscriber close to 1K.